Okay, so you guys go first. So what is science?
We think science is a push to find out something new based on the previous theory, like to test the something we don't know. And
Okay, say that. There's a lot in there. So say it again.
it's a push to find out something new.
Okay, so and
based on the previous theory.
Okay.
And it uses a variety of calculations, experiments, and analysis.
So
Yeah. So the root word means, the Latin root word means knowledge. So we went with a systematic framework for discovering and organizing knowledge.
for
Discovering and organizing knowledge.
An attempt to understand the natural world and find answers to improve the world.
you said attempt to
Yeah, attempt to understand the natural world. And then the last part was to find answers to solve problems and improve.
Okay. Okay. That could be an interesting discussion. All right. Where did you go?
You pretty much have all that.
Right. Okay. You guys.
We went over a lot of that already.
It's basically everything that we said. To us, science is anything that you basically, it's things that you can prove with evidence and theories, and you also test it out.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's all. Okay. So maybe one question I want to ask you guys, just to follow up on this, is, and this gets more to the second part when I was asking you, what do you think other people think science means? So we'll work more with this later, but before we go on, let me ask, so what is science not? So think about maybe what you see as people's misperception about science, like other students' misperception. So let me give you, for instance, does science mean a collection of facts you have to memorize? But a lot of people think that, right? I don't want to take science lumping together every discipline, right? Because it's too hard. I have to memorize too many things. I have to memorize too many calculations or formulas. So it's not a collection of facts. Right? Is it a oh, go ahead.
Science is not stagnant, it's always changing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good point, right? And that sort of gets to something that I overheard, I think. So it's always changing because there's always questions, because we're never going to figure out everything, right? But that gets to another, what I argue or I accept as another not. So science is not an undirected, unending quest, right? Yeah, you could argue, or I guess I would agree with the notion that we want to know reality, we want to know what the truth is, but science isn't the only way you can do that, right? Science is not the only search for truth. There's other ways to do that, right? So it's not an unending, undirected quest for truth per se, and it's not a collection of facts. Is science a person? No, right? So this whole, one of the things that nomenclatures or uses that kind of rubs me the wrong way when you read or you hear someone's making this great discovery, like we have found this insect that's new to science. What does that even mean? Right? Science isn't a person, science isn't a group of people, right? And it's not, how would I say, esoteric in the sense that it's not true that you have to have a PhD to do science, right? I'm in the Texas Master Naturalists. They do science all the time. They sort of call it that, but they're doing science. They're citizen scientists. All right, so can we maybe summarize these ideas a bit and break this down? So science is an attempt to understand the natural world. Science is a framework. Science is a way to find new ideas.
You say science is an attempt to understand, or is a system, framework of organizing knowledge and an attempt to understand the natural world and find answers based on previous theory.
That's pretty good.
He said what he's saying.
What I was fishing for, but so, well, okay. Organization. Scientists do organize things, but so do other people, right? So to me, I mean, that's part, and it makes doing the science easier, right? So we can get to where I want to get to, I think, with that notion of part of the reason that we put organisms in boxes is what? Why do we care? Why do we care that, what use is it to take all the cats, dogs, elephants, giraffes, and people and put them into mammals? Why is it useful to put all of the single-celled organisms with peptidoglycan in the cell wall in bacteria? Why do we do that?
Create a general understanding.
In what respect? I mean, how does that help us understand something?
It generalizes it, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, is it, go ahead.
Wouldn't it classify it in a certain area to where you're able to organize your thoughts and say all of these species have one common thing? They have something in common, therefore they belong to this group. They have something in common, therefore they belong to that group.
True, but why do you want to do that?
Because if you don't, it's easy to get disorganized and misinterpret your data.
Well, data from what? Because the, well, let's take something easy. So, I don't know how easy this is. Like if we look at birds, because I'm a birder, so I'm going to go ahead and do birds. So we say this bird is about this big. A lot of times we do it's bigger or smaller than a robin is our crude measure. So it's about this big. It's feeding on the ground. It is blue and it has a crest. Right? Those are all data. And then we use those data and say, okay, we're going to put all of those birds into this group, this species. And we're going to put all the birds that behave the same or have similar morphologies, and we're going to put them all in the perching bird group. So those are all based on data, but why do you want to make the box? Well, how does that help us?
Keep track of previously gathered knowledge.
So, okay, so to organize, yeah, I mean, there's all of this information out there. You need to organize it somehow, right? But, so now maybe go throw out the situation where, okay, now let's say somebody does see something new, either in the rainforest or in the deserts or Antarctica, something that they don't know, right? But then they describe it, they write down the description, and they say, well, it's got 2 legs, and it's got wings, and it looks like this. So, what's the question now?
They compare it back to what we've done before, and then decide where it belongs and try to develop new ideas about it or characters.
Yeah, or who is it related to?
Right.
So the organization is there, and it was sort of mentioned, is that having things organized allows you to then ask questions. So I'm going to get back to sort of my summary thing. What all of these say to me, and even the attempt word, is that science is a process, or science is a way, a vehicle for understanding. You guys use the natural world, we could just say nature, we could say the universe, whatever you want to put here. But science is a process. Science is a mechanism for understanding the universe. And it's not the only one, right? Right? The big conflict is with the other way of understanding the universe, which would be based on religion, right? Based on belief, based on faith, based on your opinion, right? That would be the third big one. It's my opinion. So science is a process, right? We actually use in one of the graduate classes a book titled Science as a Way of Knowing. So to deal with all of this stuff, science is a process. And I think you guys mentioned, more or less, that we're trying to answer questions that we have, right? Well, where do those questions arise, or from where do those questions arise? Sorry? Observations, right? Okay, so one of the things I wanted to highlight here. Let's say so I want you to think back to maybe 18th century. Or even earlier, like back when I was in elementary school. And you weren't, well, we didn't have scientists then, right? What did we have? And no one called themselves a scientist until a little while. We have philosophers, natural historians, those kinds of people. So let's say you are, wait a second now, one of these guys. Okay, so who's this? Newton, who's that? Galileo. All right, so let's say you're those guys. Or even later, we have these two. So who's this? So who's this?
I don't know.
They do, but they're not the same guy. This guy is why he finally got his butt and published The Origin of Species.
Wallace.
That's
Alfred Wallace.
Yeah. They came up with, independently, the model, we'll say, of evolution, the now theory of evolution, right? Because, so I guess this maybe as an aside, as scientists, or somebody who's going to be working with scientists, or talking to other people about science, in terms of what it is, a theory is not the same thing as a hypothesis, right? And a theory is not the same thing as a guess, right? Even though that's what you hear on the nightly news. so I'm talking head